So I wanted to continue with the lessons by adding on to the skills. We need to look at how to do stairs. The one thing I haven't taught yet is how to do arches. So, and anything that involves curves or circles. Okay, so to kind of get all those skills into a new drawing, I'm going to do the inside, an interior skate park. So the minute I say inside, you should know how to start, except because I want a lot of floor area on this one, I'm going to put the back wall fairly high up on my page, and I'm going to make it really small. Just to allow a lot more area. And again, transferable skills. This is how you would start the inside of a hockey rink. Something like that would be the same way. So, and I'm going to put my X, and in fact, you know what? I think I'm going to move my X up a little bit so that it's mostly floor and walls, because I don't really care about the ceiling. So let's look how that, see how that looks. So again, from the X through the corners, and then from the X through the corners. And that allows me to have a much bigger space inside than the way we were previously drawing. So remember, the more space you want, the smaller your back wall will be. Okay, so stairs are the first thing. And stairs are one of my favorite things to draw in perspective, because when you freehand stairs, they never turn out right. You always end up with one step too big or one step too small. So I'm going to show you the exact method that you can use to figure out your stairs. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, so I'm just going to create an area of stairs right here. And so I'm just going to start with the square, or the rectangle that represents the stairs that I want to draw. So I said the easiest way to start is by thinking of everything as basic cubes. And then how do we figure out the information? Same steps we've always been doing. I'm just going to start dividing this rectangle up. Do the math. All right, so we go corner to corner, and then we always go straight up through the middle. Oops. And straight across. So I've actually divided it into 4 equal sections. And now what I'm going to do is divide it again. Well, this section has already been divided from this corner to this corner, so we can just keep going. I'm going to go from this corner to this corner, and I'm going to go up through the middle and across the middle. And how quickly we were able to divide that. I said, it's all about skill building. You just get used to doing this, and you get so fast at it, you don't even think about it anymore. Let's keep going. Keep dividing everything. Oh, slightly off on that one. Trying to rush it a bit too much. There we go. Okay, so that was pretty fast. And now we have 4, 8, 12, 16 sections. And you can see it would only take 1 minute to go back and divide everything up once again to make even smaller sections. So if this was a hockey arena and you put this over here, you could easily make these the stands in a hockey rink. Okay, so I am going to take what I've got. This is enough for you to understand the skill. And now we can see the stairs just go like this. So if I go here, 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 that would give us 4. And of course you can figure out if we kept dividing, we could have a lot more steps. So I'm just going to take that. I'm going to get rid of all of this. Hopefully you were drawing yours really light as blocking lines. And, okay, step number 1, draw the end of the object. We just did. Step number 2, of course, go to the X. And remember, your ruler always has to go back to the middle of the X, but your lines only need to go far as back as the object will be. Okay, so this starts to get trickier because as we come towards the middle, it's hard for us to see the view of the stairs. I can still draw this one. Can I go from this line? Barely. But that's what the view is. Remember, it's this. As you can see, the side of the top and the side over here, as I start bringing it towards the middle of the page, you can barely see this side of the piece of wood. That's what this represents. Okay, step number 1, we do the front of the object. Step number 2, go back to the X. Step number 3, cut off the sides. Whatever you do at the front, you do at the back. So I'm just going to, the front goes straight across, the back goes straight across. Front goes straight up and down, back goes straight up and down. And I'll just continue to do that for all of the stairs. Last step. So perspective is a really great technique for people that are really precise and want it to all work out without having to guess at all. All right, so of course we could get much fancier. This is a really simple staircase. A way to get it a bit fancier would be, instead of your stairs just going like this, start to think, well, what if the stairs went over and around like this and over and around like this? So if we started with something more complicated, then when you go to the X, you have another corner here, you have another corner here. And now you have that whole idea of using double lines instead of single lines anytime that you can make things a little bit more complicated. It gives you more to draw, it gives you more to shade, creates the interest. Okay, so the other skill that we haven't really looked at yet is we've done the same steps over and over again. This is the one new step that we have to take a look at, and that's drawing things that are round. So we're going to start with taking the idea of a window and putting an arch on the top. So I'm just going to go onto a scrap piece of paper for a minute and pre-sketch it out. So when we have a window that we're looking straight on, and we want to add something round to the top of it, we would do that by extending the space where we want the arch to be. And then, what information do we need to know? Well, we need to know where the middle is, because we need to know how to center that arch. So we would find that information. And again, it's always handy to go sideways to give us some math on our sides as well. So to do a curve, you would go over and around. Nice curve on this side. And once you can kind of see the negative space here, you know it's got to look the same on the other side. So remember, don't go down too fast. You just go over and around and down till you have a curve. You can also do the same thing with a pointed curve. Or fast. You would just, instead of going out and around, you would just kind of go down faster. I said whatever you do on this side, you do on this side to give you that kind of window. So that's how it would look straight on. So what happens when you do it in perspective? So let's put one over here. So we would go bottom to the X, top to the X. Our window would look like this. Same thing, we would decide which part of it we wanted the curve to be in. Is it a little curve at the top? Is it a big curve? So I'm just going to put it here. Goes to the X. And then I'm going to find the middle, because remember, the middle is farther back. This side of the curve is much bigger than this side, but the steps remain the same. So from the middle line, just like we did here, we went out before we went around. Same thing, you kind of have to come out this way. Then let's see where our curve went. Oh, it went to that line right there. Yeah, okay. So we still have the same guidelines. And then what happens on this side? This side gets all squishy. Same thing, we're going to go out a little bit. We want to end up here. Yeah, that is what we want to do. So that's how we do the arch in perspective. So let's go ahead and do one on this wall. So I'm going to start by doing just like a big doorway. Whatever size you want. So the top will go back to the X. And then I'm just going to decide, where do I want my arch to be? So I'm going to take the bottom, go back to the X. Okay, so we need to do our math. Always corner to corner, straight up and down through the middle. And then, oop, I'm off a little bit. Gotta fix it. That one. And then, same thing, from the middle to my X. So now I have the information that I need. So again, I'm doing this line. So I'm coming out a little bit before I do my nice curve down like this. And then you notice I'm not getting it right the first time. Sometimes it's not curvy enough. Sometimes I have to kind of go over my line a little bit. That's okay. Again, it takes some practice. The same thing over here. I have to come over a little bit and end up down here. Now that one looks good. Often, because I have already taken the time to do all these lines, instead of erasing them, I just make them part of my window. I mean, why not? You took the time to draw it. So if you go like this and just kind of double your lines, you've already done the math. You can do that. Sometimes I'll go ahead and use these lines too. Get a nice little fancy window going. Something like that. And then I'll erase this outer part here. And of course you already know the steps, how to figure out, go straight across at the bottom, kind of go up the back side, go straight across, go up. So just the one trick that you need to know is when you're doing an archway like this, and when you go to do the thickness of an arch, where does the arch stop? It stops halfway, which is great. You know where halfway is. So you go like this. You would go straight up, and then when you get to the bottom of the curve, you go from there to the halfway point, like that. So once again, you don't have to guess anymore. So from here, I would go here. I need to stop right there. So the bottom of the curve is here. The top is right there in the middle. And that's exactly where the bottom of the arch is. So now you have the skills to be able, you could go and take this wall and divide it all up and create a whole colonnade of arches getting smaller, skinnier, as, well, better than I did, as you go back in space, just by using the same lines and the same techniques. And you would be able to do that quickly, and then of course making them all three-dimensional. So when you get good enough at perspective, you can actually, I mean, obviously I'm sketching this really fast, but you can sketch out your ideas fairly quickly. I just want to take this idea of a curve and, okay, so what else can we do with it? Transferable skill. Well, I said this was a skate park just so that I could add in, I think it's called a half pipe. So once again, I'm just going to take a scrap piece of paper and I'm going to put it over here. So what is it that I'm drawing? I need something that looks like this. That's going to go back. And, you know, as I said, I usually just kind of sketch stuff out first. Yeah, I need something that looks like this. Okay, well, they're going to hurt themselves if it's pointy. So it better be flat here. So they got a place to rest. Okay, that works. Okay, so I wanted to create something like this. Let's go through the steps of it. So step number 1, draw the end of the object. Okay, we can do that. Let's start with the rectangle. And at this point, I can just kind of go, especially when you're looking straight at things, I can just kind of go and, you know, take out the ruler and make sure that I'm even here. Or I can be precise and do the math. Some people are like, just give me a ruler. When you're looking straight on things, you can just use a ruler to measure things. It's when things are going back in the distance that you can't use a ruler to mathematically figure this out anymore. You need to use this technique to figure stuff out. I personally think it's a lot easier to be able to draw lines from corner to corner to figure out my stuff. And take a look, and I'm like, it's a little wider than I want that top to be. So I'm looking at this going, no, I need to divide this one more time. Again, as you're practicing skills, you start to get easier and easier to the point where you don't even really think about it anymore. I rushed this one a bit too much. Okay, so now I have this information. And I know where the middle is, which means I now have enough information to get a nice curve in here. Remember, I can't turn the page because of the setup of the camera, but remember, the best way to do a curve is for you to turn the page. Another little cheat to remind you from before, I know how far the curve is from this line. I'm just going to use a scrap piece of paper, and I'm going to go, the measurement is from there to there. I'm going to slide it over here. So now I really wish I could turn the page so that I can start to get this curve. And again, it's a little too pointy at the bottom. So I'm just going to round it up a little bit more. All right, so at this point I'm like, lighten all this stuff. So step number 1, draw the end of the object. Step number 2, go back to the X. So I'm going from each of my corners. Okay, decide wherever you want to cut off the back of it. So I'm going to go way back here. So the front goes straight across, the back goes straight across, the front goes straight across, the back goes straight across, front goes straight up and down, back goes straight up and down. Alright, so again, what information can help me here? Well, knowing where the middle is always going to help me, so I don't have to do all that work at the back because I've already got the information up here at the front. So I'm just going to go back to the X, and wow, the middle is way over here. So I'm just going to go, first of all, let me put the bottom in. That's going to help. So I'm just going to really lightly go, if I could see through this. It would go there, here, and here. And there's the other corner is right there. Okay, well that makes life a lot easier. So now if I go find the middle, and the middle's right, so I'll go from the top to the X, wherever it touches the bottom line, That's the middle's right here. So then I know, what did I do here? I went from the corner to the middle here, and the corner from the middle here. And again, it's going to take me a few times to try to get my curves nice. But that sets up the structure. And then imagine you take all this knowledge and you start combining it with what you know about the shading, how I always like to kind of go back and shade in the sides because I think it makes it look cool and it gives it some depth. Imagine what you can do on here. So when you're shading, the lines go towards the X. So I'm not just going to randomly go like this. I'm going to follow the direction of the object. I'm just going to kind of point all my shading. And we have this line to help us. So I'm going to do this pretty quickly. But I'm going to start pointing all that shading back to the X. It'll look so cool. And then, of course, knowing what we know is this is an inverted cylinder. So what has to happen every time something is round? How do you show it? From going light to dark. So I'm using a mechanical pencil, not the best choice for shading, but what happens when I start to go a lot darker down at the bottom? And I slowly go light, just like we started at the beginning of the year. And then now I'm doing it towards that X. Always pointing back towards that X. So we're going to get so much darker down here at the bottom. And we start to get lighter as we go up. That's going to look really cool. And then we can do cool things too, like if this is all made out of wood and we want to kind of sit there and put the texture in. Even the lines of the wood would kind of go back towards the X a little bit this way. All right, so that gives you an idea of, again, how we can start taking arches and start applying those to other things. So this is the last drawing that I'm going to do of buildings. The next one we'll move on to how to draw vehicles, how do you draw trucks, how do you draw boats. We'll go on from there.